Fog. Blah! There's many an old sailor will say to you, I don't mind a bit of a gale of wind. They're all right once you get used to them, but just keep me out of the fog. I hate fog, and so do we all. Fog has never been nice, and it's not nice today. But it's an awful lot better today than it was in the old days. Look at all this kit we've got here to keep us safe. Back then, there was a big problem. Actually, there were probably two big problems. The first one was that out there in the murk, there were ships and fishing boats and even other yachts, all trying to kill us. That's how it seemed. We didn't know where they were. We might hear them coming, but we weren't sure. The second point was that, as like as not, we only had the dimmest idea of where we were. So how are you going to handle that? Well, I might talk about that a bit in a minute or two. But rather than try to give some sort of blow-by-blow account of how to use all this wonderful kit, I'm not going to do that, because there's manuals to tell you how to do that. I'm going to spin you a couple of yarns about the way things were, and maybe there's a little glean of wisdom can come out of them. First one that I remember, I mean, I've had dozens of incidents in fog, but two stand out. I was delivering a yacht from Westerlies. It was a new yacht, and it was going to La Rochelle Boat Show down in western France. We had to go down the English Channel with this boat, brand spanking new, through the Canal du Fort, which is a sort of rock-swept hellhole, really, with the tide roaring through it. And when you've gone through that, you get a few moments' peace, and then you have to go through the Raz de Seine, which is even worse. And when you get squirted out of that by the tide, if you've got the tide right, suddenly you're in the Bay of Biscay, about which police said soonest mended. So it was an interesting trip, but it was a new boat and things were looking good until the batteries melted down in mid-channel. They died. Brand new boat, there was some sort of short circuit somewhere, and I suppose it happens with new boats, doesn't it? Even with factory built ones. And we had absolutely no power at all. Well, first thing we did was go for the hand start, because you can always hand start a diesel. The wind was falling light and the visibility was not good. So we thought, well, we'll get the engine cranked up. We'll do that. I'd noticed when I was looking in the engine compartment before we left that it had a hand start device. And this is a long time ago. Engines still had decompressors in those days. It was an old Volvo Penta, 3-cylinder. They had 3 of them. So I got the handle. I presented it to the engine. My mate let the decompressors off, and I made to wind the handle, and it wouldn't go round. And guess why? Because the builders had put the engine in such a way that you couldn't turn the handle. There was furniture in the way, and rather than rip Mr. Westerly's furniture out completely so I could turn his starting handle that he proudly left me in lovely clips on the engine room bulkhead, I decided to go engineless. It was the only decent thing to do. So on we went, and off Labavrac, which is a port, small port, in the extreme northwest of France, the fog came in, thick and greasy and damp. And, well, what are we going to do? The last thing we saw was the entrance buoy off Labavrac. I thought, we'll get in there. We can go in there. We've got a fair breeze. We'll sail in, and with a bit of luck, the fog will clear when we get inside, and we'll be able to see our way in. Because Labavrac is another of these wall-to-wall rock places. It's if you can't see where you are, it's desperate. In good weather, it's easy. There's 2 big transits, one in, one down to the dock, and you're there. But we couldn't see them. We couldn't see anything. And we proceeded up the channel as best we could. And I started getting the feeling that all was not well. We'd drifted off with the cross set of the current, and suddenly I realised we weren't in the main channel at all. We were in a little cul-de-sac. I didn't know where it was. I didn't even know which side of the channel it was. All I knew was that these places existed, and I couldn't get out of it. We're under sail. There's nothing to be done. I dropped everything, and we dropped the pick as well. We dug the anchor in the old-fashioned way, and there we sat, hoping things would clear. Safe enough, you might think. Well, we would have been, except for the fact that it was a falling tide. And it became clear when I reduced the soundings, the depth, very quickly, that at low water we were going to be dried out totally, because this is a big tide place. And I started watching the echo sounder, and it was the bottom was approaching rapidly. And when it got to about, I don't know, about a foot away, 0.3 of a metre, I was in despair, because I had to pull the anchor up and go and sail through this rock-strewn wilderness and hope for the best and risk wrecking the ship. Or I had to stay put and end up dried out on my side in Mr. Westerly's brand new yacht. Not a happy choice. And just at that moment, put, along comes a little outboard with a smiling French fisherman. He had all the kit, striped shirt, bury the lot. And he comes alongside and he says, "Can I help you, monsieur?" I said, "Well, I think you probably can, yeah." He says, "You are not good here, you will be dry soon." And he was dead right. So I said, "Well, can you show us the way in?" He said, "Yeah, follow me." So we followed this friendly fellow. He turned round every now and again and beckoned us on, and we got the sails up, and I knew I could sail in, you see, if I could just get out of the hellhole. And we close haul, we just got out, we could see which way he was going, and then he turned right, and that meant he was on his way up the channel. So in we went. We sailed the boat alongside in about 30 yards visibility, and he sort of hung about a bit. And of course he was waiting for his bottle of whiskey, wasn't he? Well, I didn't have one. It was a delivery. I was dry. So he thought, well, one of the lads, one of the delivery crew, he said, "Well, come on, we're going to have a nice dinner, aren't we? We owe ourselves that at least. Let's take him along and give him a good dinner and a glass of wine." So we did. And he said, "Oh, I will show you the best restaurant, monsieur. I know the patron. We will be well looked after." And, well, we were well looked after, because by the time I saw the bill, it made my eyes water. He'd ordered the best wine and the Napoleon brandy and all the crustas, the whole shooting match. And we'd had a grand dinner, but I was skint. So there you are. The fog did clear. We never did sort the batteries out, not there. We sailed the boat out, we sailed it to La Rochelle and delivered it, and we got paid. So I suppose it's a happy ending, but rummy old tale, eh? Now the second incident this is a happy ending, and there's no question about this. I was skippering a racing yacht, and we were coming home from France, where we'd been racing. We'd been round a buoy off northern France. We hadn't been in to get any nice meal or anything, because the course laid by the committee had taken us to within sniffing distance of the Café du Port and then sent us back out into the wilderness again. We then had to go round a buoy off Poole Harbour and then back up to the Solent and up to Cowes, where the race was due to finish. Well, I'm just putting a chart up now so that you can see approximately what the situation looks like when you're approaching the English side. You can see Poole there on the chart, and you can see the Needles Channel. So what are you going to do when the fog comes in? Well, the fog did come in. We were in the middle of the bay between Christchurch and the Needles when the fog came in thick. Well, my plan had originally been to go up the Needles Channel, because the tide was fair and we were racing, but we'd done Poole already and we were on our way back. We decided that we would go for the North Channel. And there's a system here, because this is what you used to do in fog. When you weren't sure where you were, but you were sure where you wanted to go. And where I wanted to go was into the channel that get me inside the Needles, because I thought it was quite likely if we got into the West Solent, the fog would ease, might even clear, because it would be coming over the Isle of Wight. And so rather than aiming for the Needles Channel, we opted for the North Channel instead, and we steered straight for the beach. Might sound crazy, but we knew we weren't steering anywhere towards the channels. We were going in through the North Channel that you can see here on the chart, that is taking you between the Shingles Bank and the fort on the corner. And we went in until we found 10 metres of water on the echo sounder, which related at that time to somewhere just outside the 5 metre line on the chart. And we reckoned if we followed that, we turned to starboard and we followed that line carefully, watching the echo sounder all the way. There was nothing to hit. We could just work our way along, and in due course, as the contours come together, we would be right at the entrance to the Solent, and we'd be able to see the land on our port side, because we'd be so close we'd be able to toss a digestive biscuit straight onto the dog that was walking on the beach. And that's what happened. We worked our way along. We saw the fort on the corner as we went in. There was a bloke walking his dog. He didn't get the biscuit, but at least he was there. And as we went into the Solent, the air cleared. And we swept up to Cowes on a following tide, and we got a good place. So it wasn't a bad result, was it? That's what we used to do in fog, and it's worth knowing when you haven't got any instruments. Don't aim for where you want to go. Aim for one side of it, but know what the depth's going to be, and then use the depth as a position line and work your way along to where you want to be. It's a surprisingly good thing to do if you've got the right conditions and the chart reads properly. Well, it's a different world now, isn't it? Here's my B&G. I've still got my paper chart, but my goodness me, this is telling me what I want to know, isn't it? I've got my chart plotter and I've got my radar on my split screen. Now, here's an interesting thought. A chart plotter, of course, tells you where you are, and it's great. But it doesn't tell you about all the other boats. It might tell you about a few big ones that are showing AIS. And a lot of yachts today show AIS, but there's plenty of boats that don't. And there's plenty that should that don't. So there you are. I've known a number of professional seamen who've said to me, you know, when the fog comes down, if I had to have one or the other, I'd leave the chart plotter at home and I'd go for radar. And that's revealing, isn't it? Radar is the most wonderful thing. It's the best collision avoidance system that there can ever be. However, you've got to know how to use it. And you've got to be reasonably practiced with it. If you've got a setup like this, put it on a lot of the time and just play with it. Use it in conjunction with the chart plotter. Use the chart plotter to show you where you really are and see where you are on the radar. Get used to it. But of all things, you really should go on a course. You spend a lot of money on this kit, and it doesn't cost much to go on a radar course. It'll take you a day or maybe a weekend, just a short course, and it'll make all the difference. Because radar is interactive. It's a conversation between you and the machine. The plotter isn't. It's a simple thing. Really, anybody can use it. It's intuitively, but not so radar. So get yourself educated, find out how it works and be confident with it, and sail forward into the mists in complete confidence that you're going to be all right.